Hi, guys, and welcome again to the Leading with Love podcast. It is an interview day, and I have the most beautiful soul for you to connect with. And I'm really excited that she's here. I know I say this every time, but truly, the people that are coming to be in this space, it feels very intentional. I invite people that I know have so much to share and that we will have a conversation. It's my intention today and always to have a conversation that is more than the sum of its parts, that brings you new perspectives and new insights and opens your heart, like I said, and shows what it means to be leading with love. And my guest today, her name is Suzanna Dreifelds, and I've known her for several years, and I met her at a in a work environment, but her spirit and her soul and the human being that she is so beautiful that I just adore her and love her, and she has become a very dear friend of mine. She is a communications and mindset expert and the co-founder of Peak Performance Coaching, and this woman is fierce. She is incredible. She brings so much wisdom and knowledge to the table for her clients and applies them in her life. She treats herself like a guinea pig, and I mean that in the most beautiful way. I have seen her, witnessed her many, many times learning something and then just diving in and applying it and evolving and expanding. And the way that she approaches life is so powerful and effective and beautiful. And so we're just going to dive into a number of topics today, and I have questions for her. I'm sure she has things to share of her own volition, and I'm just really excited. So thank you for being here, and I'm going to bring on Miss Suzanna Dreifelds. Here she comes.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited, as you can hear.
So happy to be here. Thank you for that lovely intro.
Oh, truly my pleasure. I mean, when I see you as a coach, I see that linear sort of left brain brilliance that you possess. And then when I see you as a friend, I've seen you in very many circumstances where you're just bringing this heart and soul, and it's beautiful, beautiful combination that makes you so special, and I love it. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Hmm. So, do you want me to ask you questions, or would you like to dive right into some of the communications aspects that you're working on and
Well,
with?
if you have questions for me, I would love that. But I can go either way, whatever works
Okay, well,
best.
let's start with a question. I know, actually, I even have, of course, I have some notes. So, you work with your clients on their mindset and overcoming blocks and beliefs that may stop them from living fully and living the lives of their dreams and accomplishing the things that they actually really do want to accomplish. And I know for you, communication is a big part of that, and also mindset, as you said, and I said, but the beliefs come into that too. And I know you've recently really been studying that a lot in terms of
Mhm.
eradicating or dissolving beliefs that we may not even see consciously. So, can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say at the heart of what we do, we want people to connect. Connect with themselves, connect with the people that are significant and important in their lives. And when you have a belief that is getting in your way, it can really skew that connection with others. And so the way I look at it is, when you're having a conversation with, somebody you care about, and you can see that your communication isn't quite landing in the way that you want it to, or you feel like you're trying to express something,
Yes.
but it's not quite coming out the way that you want it to, and you're getting frustrated and your needs aren't being met, and you're just not sure how to get through that. That's really what we help people with, is navigate those conversations, and um, help people to be able to better understand each other and have communication land in a way that is enrolling and just peaceful, so that all
Ah,
parties can have their needs met, really, is what we're out to create. So when you have a limiting belief, so you have a belief that's in a as part of your relationship, you go into that conversation with a listening of that person that's created by this belief that you have. And so by
Can you say
doing
that
so,
again?
yeah.
That
So
was
if you have
important.
if you're yeah, if you hold a belief, let's say, my partner never pays any attention to me.
Okay.
So you go in with that belief, then that's the lens you carry into your communication. And so essentially, your partner doesn't really stand a chance of showing up any other way because you're already listening for and seeing that your partner does not pay attention to you.
Wow.
And so, if you can understand that that is really that your belief is the root cause of it, and what our brains do is we gather and collect evidence to prove that to be true. So
Yes.
the more evidence we're collecting, the more that we're creating that narrative that this is just something that exists in the relationship. But if you can drill down on that belief and say, well, ask yourself first and foremost, where did this belief even come from? And once you start doing that, you might begin to realize this is something that could have, happened to you in childhood or in
Mm.
your teenage years, and or it was part of your environment, and that belief may not even be yours to begin with.
Wow.
And then if you can look at, okay, well, is it like, one, is it mine? Is it true? Is it true that nobody pays attention to me? Is it true that my partner's not paying attention to me? And you can start to slowly dismantle that belief to kind of, and it won't necessarily like fix all of your problems right away, but what it will do is create an opening for you know for that person to show up differently. So it's really always about, we can't control other people, and but we can look at who we're being and how we are showing up in situations that are kind of yielding the results that we're producing. Really.
You just dropped a whole bunch of gold nuggets, and I'm trying to unpack it because, I mean, for one, it always starts with us, right? That projection and
Hmm.
that, blame and all of those things, they don't work. They hurt us, they hurt the other person. And that was brilliant, brilliant, as you know, that insight about how they don't have a chance to show up any other way. I'm really grateful for that. I hadn't seen it like that before. When we are coming in with that, it's reticular activation, right? It's like
Absolutely.
quite literally there would be a cognitive dissonance if you were to try and see them another way without addressing that underlying belief. And that was such a beautiful way to put it, that you're not even giving them a shot at showing, you're perpetuating the pattern. Of
Hmm.
course. I mean, this is logical. Of course. That's what I love about you. I love your logic so much. It's
I,
really brilliant.
I
But
I believe
go ahead.
I was gonna say that I believe it stems from, we're not really taught how to express ourselves or how to express our needs.
Mm,
And so oftentimes when we do, it lands as a criticism or as a judgment for other people. So
mm.
let's say maybe your partner isn't paying attention to you
Fair
and
enough.
you would like them to, you would really like them to. And you say, well, you never pay attention to me. And that immediately is
Whew.
received as, this person's judging me and now I'm not doing enough, and it's a criticism, and you're like, well, what motivation does that
Yeah, it
give
doesn't
them?
make them want to spend
But
more time with you, right? Where the real underlying message is, I miss you and I love you and I want to spend time with you and I want to feel
yeah,
seen. And oh, that's so
there's a
beautiful. And
disconnect.
it's a disconnect. That's really lovely that you're considering. Again, I'm still just unpacking all the things that you said, because it starts with us, not with them. And when we dissolve
Yeah,
beliefs and change energetically, then they can show up differently. It's like we think they're doing something, but we're actually holding that pattern like a force field in place.
yeah.
You know,
I I can't tell you how many clients I have that are that, they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, my husband's just like wonderful and he's paying more attention to me." And they're like, "I don't know what he's doing." I'm like, "It's not him, it's you. It's how you're showing up. It's who you're being." And you're giving them all the credit, but it's you that's
oh, the
created that
credit.
space.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And even that,
Yeah.
taking blame and instead putting credit,
Mhm.
is a brilliant reframe right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ah,
All
and
starts up
yeah,
here in your head.
yeah. Um, it's so interesting because in the work that I do, I'm trying to get people out of their heads and into their hearts. And
Hmm.
you're bringing this beautiful, different way of doing things than what sort of is in my path. And there are always more ways. Trying to think of another. I was going to say to skin a cat, but that's a horrible phrase. So it's more like there are many avenues to the same alignment and, you know, to dissolving beliefs. And one of them is getting out of your mind, but one of them is really understanding how the brain works and how, as you said, beliefs can be, not just can be, are instilled from long ago from parents and teachers. And we didn't even necessarily come to these pro- almost always, right? Um,
Hmm.
with cognizance, with full presence. It's just like, oh, that's just the way it is. And
Hmm.
then there's deeper meaning too. If someone's not paying attention to you, that means that they don't love me.
Yeah. And it's, Shauna, it's not all linear. To be able to express yourself and to say what's in your heart is the emotional component. To be able to
Mm,
say, I need, I feel sad, I feel hurt, I, you
mm,
know, want connection. These aren't the easiest things to express. So it's very much, while it might, for my belief is it starts with our thoughts, that our thoughts and our feelings are happening simultaneously,
hmm.
and so you can't really have one without the other. And while I might be logical, it is what we're expressing. We want it to come from that heart, and it
Yes,
also has to be safe for it to come from the heart. And that's why we don't always just do it right
of
off the bat,
course.
because it's
Nobody
got to
wants to be
be
vulnerable, but
yeah,
vulnerability is actually where the juice is, as you know.
it is.
Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. Okay. So I don't know how much you want to go into this, but I know that you've been working with neuralistic programming, NLP, and I'm assuming that many of our listeners and watchers will have heard of that. But um, I know of it. I've certainly, you know, been delving into that over my lifetime. I would love for you to just share a little bit about this very powerful pattern interrupt technology and understanding behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really at its core, it's recognizing that the language that we use can really change our lives. And it can be as simple as reframing something from, this a struggle to a challenge. As soon as you begin to change your language around it, you're able to create a different narrative for yourself and for, your communication. And so I've just been learning those different ways of how you can interrupt that pattern. And, we were talking about that reticular activating system before. And that is essentially, for anybody that's not familiar with that term, is if you are thinking about something, you are giving it more of an emotional charge. So if something's upsetting you, and you start thinking about it, you're like burning this image in your mind, and your
Mm,
mind is going to begin to start thinking like that is super important. And so then it's going to start recalling it, because we're, our minds are set up to either pleasure or pain, essentially
mm-hmm,
avoid pain, gain pleasure. So if you have, let's say you are stressed, or you're worried about something coming up, and you're trying to relax, but that thought just keep coming up, and then you start getting frustrated and you start thinking, oh well, why am I thinking about this? Then
adding to the
and then you
stress
can't,
with the self
you're
blame.
adding to it.
Yeah.
And the more that you're thinking about it, the more your brain is saying like, this is important, this is
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
recall,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
let's bring it back. Even when they're relaxed, let's bring it back so
Loop,
that they
loop,
can
loop.
continue to think about it.
Yeah.
So, a couple of really great strategies there is, if one, you can kind of locate, is this a past thought, a present thought, or a future thought? So you can kind of go back into that memory, and you can like look at like, what is this image that I'm projecting in my mind right now. So let's say if it was you're worried about a job interview and you say to yourself, okay, well, where is this located? You can say, okay, well, this is a little bit of both. So I'm kind of projecting into the future how I think it's going to go based on perhaps a past experience that didn't go so well, the last time or years before I went, for an interview. So then once you can look at, okay, well, maybe it's this image I have of myself,
Mm-hmm.
sweating, waiting in a waiting room, and my knees shaking, and I'm
And
getting
you're
really,
adding
really
power to
nervous.
that. So it's
And
getting,
you're
yeah.
adding power, so it's getting bigger.
Yeah.
So what you can do to interrupt that is when you go to that memory in your mind, you can start looking at, okay, well, what if instead of a white shirt in my memory, I make it a red shirt? And what if instead of my hair being
Ooh,
down, my hair is up? And all of a sudden, you're creating that dissonance in your mind. And it's like it's
nice.
you're and when you do that in your mind, it begins to kind of confuse it. And when it's confused, it's great because the
Mm.
power is lessening. Your mind, like a confused mind, always says no. So if you are taking the
Ah, that's so
charge out
great.
of that by kind of reimagining that situation, your brain is gonna it kind of confuses it in the sense that that it takes that emotional charge out of that mental image that you've been creating. Now, again, this isn't going to solve your
No, no, no,
interview
no.
jitters, but it begins to set you up so that you have a more positive mind space going into it, so that you're no longer giving all of that energy, all that heat, all that focus on
Wow.
that current situation that you're in. So yeah, to recap, it's just kind of filing it in its right place in your mind, and then looking at, okay, what is this specific image that I have, and how can I just start toying with that image? How can I change it? How can I use the power of my imagination to begin to give this like a different scenario? And once that happens, then when
Right.
you go to think about it, it's like, oh, my memory's a little bit skewed here, and the charge of that thought is no longer as powerful as it was before you started that process. So just cool stuff. Like
That
it's
is
you know
cool stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really is because our imaginations are incredible and they bring power to everything, including the positive, right? So I'm listening to, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, just changing those little bits and pieces. Again, when you said a confused mind always says no, it's like
Mhm.
I've often said to myself that our brains were meant to be tools, but we've let them be the master and they just
Mhm.
run amok until someone comes along like you and shows us how to use that tool and
Mhm.
rein it in and have it be helpful. And that was really cool because what I saw was someone taking the power out of it, and also um, just that arm's length looking at it. Oh, is it past, is it future? It also takes a little of the charge out of it, right? Because when that charge is
Absolutely.
that emotional, it's right here front and center. But when you start looking, just observing whether that's coming from the past or the future or the present, that I just felt that also de-escalates that a little bit and then brings kind of to neutral with that. I love that. Change the color of the t-shirt, change little bits and pieces of it. Use your
Mhm.
mind to control that other part of your mind that's like losing its stuff, and
Yeah,
and then you can take it into the positive with that imagination. Be like, okay, it could go amazing. What are the amazing things that could happen? I could totally
exactly.
connect with this person. We are so powerful, way more
Yeah,
powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
yeah, and I love what you said there about going to neutral.
Mm,
A lot of times, you'll be, you say you're stuck in kind of this negative spiral, and people are like, "Oh, just think positively," like, or
it's too much of a
"Oh, just
jab.
calm down." If I could be calm, I would be calm.
You guys who are listening and not watching,
Obviously.
that was me making a choking version. It's like when someone tells you to calm down when you're upset. It's just like murderous,
Yeah. So
homicidal thoughts.
I look at it as like rungs in a ladder where you're just going from
Mm.
if you're sad, then one level up might just be angry, and then a level up from that might just be you know calmer, and then a level up
Yeah.
is neutral. So you just want to look at how you can slowly move up. But if you get to neutral, I consider that a very big win, because that just doesn't, what comes up must come down. So if you're,
Fair enough.
always, super happy and elated, that's great. But at some point, the scales will tip. So if you can learn and kind of teach yourself how to get to that neutral place,
Hmm.
uh, you're just going to be able to make better decisions, see different perspectives. And again, like that whole point is so that you can connect, like, so you can really just connect to, like, who you are, your alignment within yourself, so that when you go out into the world, you can share that with others.
I love it. I love how we do say the same things but totally differently. Completely different wording. That's what's so
Sure.
gorgeous because in a conversation like this, I mean whoever's listening and watching again has heard much of my perspective, and so you bringing
Yeah.
in these different ways of expressing, communicating these concepts from a much more, well, brain focused, mind focused perspective. It's so beautiful because that neutral allows you, it's really spacious, right? It's actually the only place from which you can see things clearly. And as you said, then you
Hmm.
can make decisions, then you can communicate, then you can see who you really are. And you're talking about brain neutrality. And for me, it's like a presence where we're not running around in our thoughts, we're not projecting. Um, as you said, even when we're elated, we may not be seeing things as they really are. It's as skewed as the negative, so to speak,
Hmm.
right? Only in that neutral space or alignment and presence we actually maybe see things as they are and observe and respond without pattern.
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you said about, bringing your body into it as well. I work with my wife, who is, she's her background is in athletic rehabilitation, and since we started working together, we've worked with people a lot, and using your body to get into that neutral headspace. And I believe, you could use your head to calm yourself down, you can use your body to calm yourself
Yeah.
down. I mean, we are all one,
Yeah,
and
that's why
we are
there's
one
many roads.
spiritual. Yeah,
Exactly. It
we're
really
what's
is
that
all
phrase?
one. Yeah.
Spiritual beings having a human experience. So whatever we can use to get ourselves to that neutral place that's in alignment, with
Hmm.
with our with our higher selves, I'd say is really the best way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a beautiful point too. And Courtney's amazing. She's going to be on the show another time because I wanted to have conversations with the two of you individually
For
because you're
sure.
both so amazing. And yeah, that embodiment and body work is a whole different approach to and complementary to, yeah, I mean, our nervous systems carry a lot, right? They are
Hmm.
outcroppings of our minds and our spirits. And so if we're not addressing that and healing all of the things that are we're holding in ourselves, that's what triggers are, right? They're nothing to
Yeah.
do with this moment or the person who's showing you, mirroring something to you. They're just bringing you a gift of, hey, guess what, this is still in you. Someone else could have that same conversation and it wouldn't bug them at all. Is
Hmm.
showing you what's in you that needs to be healed, that's showing itself to be healed if you want to.
Hmm. Yeah, and you think our body is our first recipients of whatever's happening in our mind as well.
Hmm.
If you're feeling that, sadness or that anger, it's going to show up in your body. You feel it in your posture. You feel
Oh
it in your,
yeah.
your jaw, and your, like,
Hmm. Yeah,
it's
in your
it's
chest or
there.
wherever you feel it, like your gut. I mean, everybody has their own ways of physiologically responding to triggers, but your body will show you because when
Oh
you
yeah.
are at peace, your nervous system feels relaxed.
Hmm. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing with pain as well. Like, I'm gonna toot Courtney's horn a little bit, but she does a lot of, her whole ethos is really looking at how people can live their lives pain free. And
Mm.
because we work together, we kind of look at emotional pain and we'll look at physical pain. But she's one of the common things she hears with clients is that they will be in pain for a very long time, and they'll be very present. Pain is one of those things. Physical
Yeah.
pain it brings you into the present
Yep.
moment. You cannot think about anything other than that gaping wound or that sore knee or whatever's happening. But when that pain goes away, some of her clients don't even notice that pain is gone. And it's always so interesting that they'll say, "Oh yeah, all of a sudden I was able to, reach for something in that cupboard, or I was able to run longer and faster without really feeling that pain." And it's because we're not, when you talk about returning to your natural state, like, we're not meant to be in pain all of the time.
Yes,
And so
exactly.
all of a sudden you go back to your regular state, and it feels so normal and it feels so good that you
Yeah.
don't, like, you've forgotten that thing that was there all the time, it's suddenly gone. And so Courtney's always like, let's celebrate that you have no pain. Like, how incredible
Yeah, it's
is that?
amazing that it forgets. It forgets. Like your
Yeah.
brain and your mind forget, which is perfect. That's actually true healing. Where you
Yeah.
it's the same with traumatic memories. When you really heal them,
Hmm.
truly, truly dissolve them, you actually don't remember that anymore. Not the way you used
Hmm.
to. It won't trigger you, it won't feel painful. Because you actually it's integrated, it's healed, and you're more whole, and it's the same with physical pain. Yeah, I mean, isn't that funny? Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That people don't
That's why I
notice
love
when they're
this
not
work.
in pain anymore.
Yeah. It just feels like it just feels like it feels natural. And
It is.
uh, you know, how wonderful would it be, to get to that point where we're able to get to that neutral, to get to that natural state where we're not, constantly, like, reliving those past traumas, whether they're physical or
Mhm.
emotional.
Because they're very
Mhm.
acute, right? As you said, with pain, it's like when you have a toothache or something, like there's not you can't really think about anything else when you're in pain.
Mhm.
It obscures all the other things, and all the other things are so beautiful. Connection and
Mhm.
adventure and life force coursing through us and taking us wherever it wants to. It's like it stops everything. So the work that
Yeah.
you two are doing to help people live fully is so powerful and needed and beautiful, and we are grateful. We, the rest of the humans.
Well, I'm fortunate that, that where we have, attracted one another in our environment, and there are so many, beautiful light workers that have different ways to access this within people. None of this information could be new to people, but it could be delivered in a way that lands differently because I say it, or because you say it, or somebody else says it. So I think it's really good to listen to, podcasts like yours, Shauna, where people get different perspectives and they hear people delivering messages that might just land in a way that finally gives them that aha moment, like, oh, I can't tell you how many things I've read over and over and over again, and then you
Same.
just get something different from it every
Yes.
time, because you're open to it, and you know that that message is meant for you. And if it takes, the first read, or the 50th read, or the first podcast, or the 100th podcast,
Yeah.
and it just lands in a different way, and it'll
I
be like, ah,
love,
that's right.
yeah, I love those moments when you're like, oh, you get another piece of the puzzle. And
Hmm.
whether you're repeating something, reading, or I do the same, listen to so many things and watch so many things. But every time I get something else, something different, because I'm evolving. And then bringing you on here is saying something different than someone else. And yeah, we do learn from repetition. Our subconscious for sure does, right?
Hmm.
It gets it and it
Hmm.
gets it. And each little piece of the puzzle that comes in and we get it, we have we change, and we have a broader perspective and a more integrated and holistic perspective that's healthier for us. So you speaking about this stuff today has done so much for me, and I'm going to
Ah,
assume anyone who's watching or listening, you're adding pieces to their puzzle. As you
oh,
just
thank
said,
you.
it's really cool. I love that we
Yeah.
are different.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's important that we're different, because if we're all saying the same thing in the same way, then it could get missed by somebody that really needs to hear it in a different way.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly, exactly. Beautiful. um I want to talk about something totally different because well, it
Yeah.
actually is, it's related, but you and Courtney and your sweet little son Ethan, you
Hmm.
went on some adventures in the last year or so. And the reason I bring that up is because I know that you have groups and clients in which you talk about living your fullest life and living your dreams and what blocks you from doing that and stops you from going for it. And I know that you had to go through some of those things yourselves because you went on the road and you took these incredible trips, and there was initially, if I hope I'm not putting words into your mouth, and you'll share in momentarily, but I think, well, we've been kind of bred to think that we have to work hard and we have to do things a certain way. And so you had to go through some of the dissolving of that to have these incredible adventures and thrive in your business with your
Yeah.
family and with these adventures all simultaneously. So now let's hear your words instead of mine.
No, that was great. Yeah, we decided, I was always very attracted to this idea of remote life, but I had always, when we met Shauna, we were in a corporate environment, and I was
Yep.
working at 9 to 5, and my wife was running out of a multidisciplinary clinic, also working. I mean, her hours were sometimes, 6 a.m. until 7 or 8 p.m. And when our son Ethan was born, 5 years ago, we started looking at, well, is this really the life that we want to lead? And for many people, it is. They like that the comfort and security of knowing where they need to be every single day, and the times that they'll do, and that is, that's great too. But there was a calling in me that I needed. I wanted, honestly, I wanted to be able to go snowboarding during the day. That was part of
Yeah.
my motivation.
Let's
Was
be
if
honest.
I can
Yeah.
go, if I can get a a password that allows me to go snowboarding when nobody else is on the mountain, then how can I make that happen in my life?
Yeah.
How can
Cool.
I? How can my life not be total chaos if my son gets sick and I can actually be at home and take
Mhm.
care of him? How can we create this family unit where we can actually be there for this little guy that is like in his, most important developmental years was really important to us. And it wasn't necessarily by choice in the beginning. COVID came along, and we both lost major contracts with the companies that we were working for. So we thought, let's give this let's move combine our skills and move to an online platform and begin teaching online. And we started with a 60-day challenge to kind of get people mentally and physically fit and moving, you know during a time when everybody was stuck at home and stagnant, and it,
Beautiful.
it just evolved from there. And that was just our response. Like, we have skills to be able to deal with this, and we're surrounded by people that are hopeful and positive. And I felt like so many other people that I talked to, they were, like constantly watching the news and
Yeah.
constantly in this
It's
state of fear and
toxic.
panic. And we thought, we've got to do something about this. So how
Mm.
can we create an environment? How can we recreate this environment that we've been part of, and give that to a wide range of people? So it was one of those things that, life grabs you kicking and screaming, and you're wondering why this is happening to you, and you just like turn it into like this beautiful program. And
Exactly. The gift that
yeah,
doesn't look like a gift at the time.
yes.
The
Hmm.
opportunity, yeah, that you took.
Yeah. And so you're right. So my wife at the time, once, things started getting more back to normal, she went back to she was working for a ski team at the time, and she decided that just wasn't the environment for her. So all of a sudden she went all in our business, and all of a sudden you've got two entrepreneurs,
Powerful
looking,
beings.
yeah, looking to expand our lives. So we thought, let's do this. Let's see what like true remote living and working looks like. So we did a couple of things. We Airbnb'd the house that we were living in, and we packed up our bags, and we went across Ontario, and then we went to Hawaii. I was fortunate enough to um, get hired by a retreat to teach communication workshops with the
Yeah,
staff that were there, and and then you and I met each other there, Shauna, and
we
we
sure
got to
did.
reconnect, and
Yeah, it was beautiful.
yeah.
I
So
love that you got to go there, um, and work, and in the most beautiful sense of that word, to bring your gifts and your skills to people that you care about and people that you were just meeting. And what a beautiful way to work. That's really what we're talking
it,
about, that you guys co-created.
it was an incredible experience, and it wasn't all easy either. I feel like there's so much out there where people are like, oh, drop your 9 to 5,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, just bring your
no
laptop. Like,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah,
Travel
it
to
is not.
Bali.
Yeah, it is not for the faint of heart, and
No.
there is risk. It's risky,
Yeah.
and I can also tell you that the payoffs are huge. To be able to experience that with my family is it truly is an incredible gift, and we're constantly evolving and learning and growing and looking at what works best. When we were doing our cross Ontario trip, we found that it just wasn't as effective because it'd be in I think it was across Canada actually. I forgot that we went out west,
Yeah, I
but
remember you guys
um,
were, yeah, skiing in the mountains, and
yeah,
like the
it was
mountains, not
just
just Ontario.
yeah, and like packing up and leaving, and then packing up and leaving made it very difficult to keep that consistency in our business. So when
Okay.
it was nice to when we went to Hawaii, we were there for 3 weeks, so we knew for 3 weeks what we were doing, what we were responsible
Mm,
for. And so, what worked best for us was if we are going to do remote, then we're not packing up every couple of days and going somewhere else. For us, it was
right.
better to be in one place for an extended period of time. But again, this is just something you've got to learn to
Yeah.
adapt to.
It's a
Hmm.
learning experience. And as you said, it's actually one of the things that I have in my notes that I wanted to mention about you is unquestionably you are always learning and growing and leaning into whatever's coming next for you with full intention of not just doing it but understanding how it will work best. And then, as I said at the beginning, I hope it didn't offend you when I said you're like a guinea pig, because I mean that you
Oh,
experientially take whatever it is you're trying to learn and you apply it to yourself first, and then
yes.
you work out the kinks for yourself, and you, even knowing that for your clients it's not going to be the same answers for them, but that the process is something you have fully immersed yourself in before you bring it to your clients. It's not just
Yeah.
theory.
No, I don't believe that you can't give what you don't have. So
Hmm.
any exercise or any teaching or any learning, first I go into it that I'm not even learning it for myself. I feel like I'm so compelled to do it because I know that whatever I'm picking up, it's immediately going to be used with my clients or with my family or with my friends or with the people that are nearest and dearest. I think oftentimes like we think that we might be doing this work for ourselves, but we're kind of doing it as the ripple effect it has on the people that
Yes.
are around us, and that always gave me extra motivation. I had I had a friend in the past that was always like, "When why are you always trying to be perfect?" And it really like it
Wow.
threw me because I think her experience of me was that I was, trying to get to this like perfect version of myself, and it wasn't about perfection. It was, I believe that like who we are is already whole, perfect, and complete.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not about a looking good or any of that. It's just about feeling that within on a regular basis, and feeling happy and good um, within us. And so when I took on doing personal development for myself, it was really just that, not that, that I needed fixing or that I was broken. It was just that I wanted to learn more about myself and the way that I operated and what I could do differently so that I could consistently feel good. Because I don't know about you, Shauna, but like for a long time it was a roller coaster. I'd feel really, really good, and then I'd feel bad, and then I'd feel good, and then I'd feel okay for a little bit, and it was just constantly up and down. And I wanted to look at, what can I learn about myself so I can keep either duplicating these or replicating these results that I'm producing for myself in a way that doesn't feel like I'm like constantly exhausted or constantly
Hmm.
chasing the carrot or, grinding.
Yeah, that's
I just
amazing.
wanted to live a life that I was really proud of and
Yeah.
happy.
That's amazing. Again, so many things that I'm unpacking there. Because I've had someone say that to me too. Someone very dear to me is like, "You're always trying to be perfect." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I'm just exploring. There's no such thing as perfection. It's curiosity and wanting to understand how
Mhm.
things work and how, yeah, how we can have that joy that is our natural birthright and not be stuck in our patterns and there's a
Yeah.
lot of toxicity in patterns when they run unconsciously, for our own selves and for others too. And I don't think that learning and growing and expanding is ever going to stop. It's part of human nature if we let it. I don't know how
It's
people
the
don't
secret
do this.
sauce.
Yeah.
Growth and contribution is what we are here to
Hmm.
do. And so I always chuckle a little bit when people are like, no, I'm not into personal development. I'm like, oh, so you don't want to grow and expand your life? They're like, no. I go,
No,
okay.
I'm good. Okay, cool.
I'm
It's
good.
so that's I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
why people don't want that because it feels like natural human curiosity to me.
It does. And that's it's I say that in jest, and it's not a judgment, it's a curiosity. And when people come from that place, I truly believe there's some fear there. They're kind of projecting a little bit of what, when you tell people in your life, "Hey, I'm embarking on this, personal development path, or I'm going to do something that's completely, against the grain, or I'm going to
Yes.
drop that 9 to 5."
Yep.
They're gonna be nervous for
Yeah.
you.
And
And
crabs in a
I
bucket
think
too,
it's
right?
misguided. I think it's just
Yeah.
misguided concern. And it also has them take a look at,
Yes.
what are they doing in their lives? And they may not be growing in that way. And again, because we're not fully taught how to express ourselves or how to, express a concern in a way that is thoughtful or gentle, it,
Helpful, supportive,
again, it can get,
encouraging.
yeah, it can go, not as planned, and that's okay too. It's all part of our journey. And
It
my
is. Yeah, we can't bring people with us either, and everybody has their own journey. And if they're saying that's what they're saying, stop. I can't go there. I don't want to go there. I'm not going to look at myself and what I'm doing and not doing. It's there. There is fear, and that's pattern. That's not the
Mhm,
deepest human presence that you're dealing with when someone's like, "Oh no, don't do that." It's definitely fear, and because the
mhm,
more you surround yourself with open people who, to me, it seems like it starts out as a personal development journey and then it blossoms into a spiritual journey, usually, often,
yes,
an
yes,
awakening, and then they kind of weave together. But personal development
mhm,
is often the entree into that journey where you start reading
mhm,
the classic success books and then you start really getting to know yourself, and then that expands into an opening of a spiritual journey of what you really really are, um,
yeah.
right, and
And
then from
everybody's
there.
gotta start somewhere, and at the
Yes.
same time, I do think it's important to meet people where they're
Yeah.
at, and get curious. If somebody says, "I'm not interested," and it's like, "Oh, well, what is it about that you're not interested in?" Or just get curious.
Yeah, or
What's there for
yeah,
you?
or let them
Yeah.
be or whatever, right? They'll come to it when
Mhm.
they're ready, and or they
Absolutely.
won't in this lifetime. And it's just surrendering to letting everybody have their path and compassion, because I'm sure there's ways in which we have not been willing to see things that were being
Oh,
presented
yeah.
to us, of course, right?
That's what
Um,
got me into all this.
right. Or, sometimes it'll take a catalyst. And I was just talking about this on an interview I did last night. Um, that, deep, deep pain can often, I would say it's one of the biggest catalysts in human lifetimes, right? Is
Mhm.
pain. We don't have to learn that way. And we're very blessed, I guess now I see that, to have this natural curiosity as opposed to being forced to rock bottom
Mhm.
and having no other choice but to go, okay, this isn't working because pain is
Mhm.
so deep, which I've certainly had, but I'm grateful to learn through curiosity now and not so much through
Absolutely.
pain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're so right. Like we get kind of used to living a certain standard or being a certain way, that becomes kind of our bar of acceptance. You know, you'll see people that stay at the same income, or they stay at the same weight, or they stay in the same relationship, or the moves that they make are lateral all the time, because that's what we've become used to and accustomed to, and that feels safe and comfortable for us. And then, the only way out of it is really to kind of get sick of where you're at and
Yeah.
want something more. Or you have an emotional impact where something happens and it rocks you to your core.
Mhm.
And often those emotional impacts aren't great circumstances. It can be a loss or a death, or like even a natural disaster, like
Yes.
and but it's important to learn that, like, when you kind of accept that there is this standard that you've set for yourself, and that you want more, and that it's okay to want more, and that growth is part of it, then that's when there's that little seed of change, or transformation, and there's that seed of, like, yeah, I want something more. Like, there's that whispering from my soul that is saying, you want to go for it, like, going for
Yeah.
it.
I was looking
Yeah.
down at my phone just because I'm looking at my notes that I wanted
Sure.
to talk to you about. No, no, it's beautiful because that's why we're we're having this conversation, is because you do bring that soul and heart into your work, and it isn't just linear, it isn't just logic. It's when you do this work, you start to hear that voice, you start to hear those little nudges, because you've cleaned
Mhm.
out those patterns and they're not so loud anymore. And so you can start to hear that small, quiet voice that was your dreams when you were a little kid. And is
Yeah,
it bubbles up, and whoo, I'm getting shivers on that, because we all had dreams when we were little kids. And you're right, life can dampen that and just make you run around on Groundhog Day and not want anything more and be afraid to try. And if you actually just go for something and listen to that little voice, you still can. Doesn't matter how old
yeah,
you are, it doesn't matter your circumstances. We are fully sovereign, capable, powerful, incredible, magical beings.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, and
yeah, we
go ahead.
forget. We
We do.
forget.
We forget, and we busy ourselves, and that's where I believe practices with your body are very helpful. The meditation, or just going for a walk in a beautiful place, or yoga, or just giving your space, 1 minute of breathing, you'll begin to
Mm.
hear those whisperings. I find I get my best spiritual downloads in the shower.
I
I
knew
don't
you
know
were going
what
to
it
say
is.
that
It's
as
the
you were going there. I
water.
was like, it's going to be shower.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because you're
I get
letting
the
go for a
best
second.
ideas.
Yeah.
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 Uh,
People do in their sleep too, right? Or when you're in the forest or surfing or whatever, because the noise in our head, right? And then the nervous system stuff, like it feels, it's powerful. Those sensations of
mhm.
whether it's shame or fear or whatever. Like, I mean, what chance do we have if we're not consciously paying attention to our own evolution and what's really
Mhm.
going on with us? And you're bringing so much light to that, in a way that's so accessible to people, that it's just brilliant in every sense of that word.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
love it. I love it. Oh, now I lost my note again because I wanted to ask you about something. Um, it's going to be, I have two things I want to ask you about. I don't want to keep you too long. I appreciate your time. One, you had a post recently where you talked about, speaking of the courage to go for things, you were talking about connection, not communication so much as connection. And that for some people, it takes courage to even reach for connection. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember this post, but maybe you're in the habit of just kind of isolating yourself, or not you, but whoever you were speaking to,
Mhm.
and that you were drawing people forth in having courage to connect. And it probably was over the holidays, when sometimes if you're not with a family or you're just feeling disconnected. Do you remember? I'm sorry putting you on the spot, but it was a beautiful post. It stuck with me.
I don't. I do. I remember. I don't remember specifically what was written. but I can still speak to it
Yeah.
that, when it comes to self-expression, there are so many times that in our past that it has become unsafe to express yourself. You worry about what people are going to say, or you're worried that if you do say something that you might be judged or ridiculed, or somebody will then know something about you,
Mm.
and they can't unknow it.
Yeah.
And so it does take that courage to be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to step outside the comfort of either staying silent or of not fully sharing myself, and just express something that means something to me, and even if that means that I'm putting myself at risk. And when we tie back into that vulnerability piece, I mean, Brené Brown, she's the expert
Hmm.
on shame and vulnerability. And while we think that it's weak to express that vulnerability, how it lands with other people is courageous.
Yeah.
So it takes something. It takes something to say, to tell yourself and to muster up everything it takes to say that thing that you've been wanting to say. Or sometimes it's just you're in a group and you have difficulty inserting yourself into that conversation.
Hmm.
But when you do, and when you open yourself up in that way, I really believe that you will succeed way more times than you'll fail in that situation. And people see it in each other. Like, no,
Yeah.
just like we can sniff out BS in other people when we
Yeah.
know somebody's intentions aren't quite there. Like, we sniff it out, we know it.
Yeah. We can
And
sense
on
it.
this
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the same token, when you're making eye contact with somebody, or you're leaning in towards them, or you're nodding your head and you're interested in what they're saying, and you're sharing, and you're giving back in that communication, people see, oh, like, they're listening to me. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
being heard, or they're, reflecting back what I just said. And these are little cues that you're engaged in a conversation or communication or even a connection with somebody that authentically cares about what you're saying.
Hmm.
And sometimes you've got to give that first to allow that space for somebody else to give it right back.
Oh, I agree
And
with
it takes
that.
courage. It takes courage to be the first one to do it. And I encourage everybody, to be that first person, because you want it. And if you want
That's
something, you got to
right.
be the one to do
That's what
it.
I was thinking while you were saying that, because connection for me is such a driving force.
Hmm.
I love connecting with people, and I love making sure, if I can, that they feel seen, because nobody feels seen. Like, it's
Hmm.
endemic. Nobody feels seen, really, really
Hmm.
seen and appreciated and valued. And I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I have, countless, at a grocery store. Like, literally, people will hug me after, just because I'm like, I really, really, really care, and you can't fake that. I want to share a moment of connection with this person. I want to brighten their
Hmm.
day. I want to give them a little love, because there's not enough of that. And so when you said that it takes courage to connect, for me personally, I found that fascinating, because for me, it's one of the things I want to do the most. So the reason I
Hmm.
asked about that is because I didn't understand what you meant, that it takes courage, but you're sharing that with me, that it does take bravery for some people. And so
Hmm.
we do get to remember that everybody wants that. Maybe not consciously, but
Hmm.
that's one of the most human things, is to want connection. It's why everybody does everything, right?
It's
Trying to
how
get.
we've evolved as a species. If
Yeah.
we were, siloed, I mean, you got to look at it like over time. We have gone from tribal communities into silos of independent housing and living, and now
Mm.
all of our communication is online. And while there's many beautiful things about technology that have advanced us, we are more disconnected now than ever. And Shauna, you and I mean, we're love bugs, right? Like, we just want to
I
love,
use
love
technology
up and
for connection. Like, it's literally what I use it for.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Here, I
not
love that.
everybody Yeah, and not everybody through their past experience has the confidence to do that. So it's important to remember, that it can take it really takes something to generate that, and the more that you practice it, the more effortless it seems. Like, for me, connection does feel effortless, and I'm not saying that to brag. It's
You've
an
nurtured that though.
evolution. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the reason I got into personal development because I got into a major fight with my brother, and I wasn't able to connect with him, and I wasn't able to express myself in a way that was able to like have us like come to some place of
Wow.
harmony, and it was disconnect, and I had a lot of anger that kept me separate from everybody. So I had to heal that within myself to be able to then have the confidence and courage to be able to connect more with others. So it was not
Wow.
always easy for me, and I really encourage those out there that need the courage to just start with the people that you feel comfortable around, and start sharing what you're up to and what you're doing, and take that that free fall, and know that you're going to be caught.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a whole bunch of us out here who've got you. I think that's a beautiful point and really important is, I wasn't always comfortable talking to people. I mean, God, like I remember when I was a kid, you know how we have to do a speech in school and you have to stand up and say, I was shaking like a leaf. I did not want to do it, and I actually won my class speech. And they wanted me to go to the gym to do it in front of the whole school, and I
Mm.
refused. Like I was sobbing. I'm like, I am not doing that. The terror was more important to me than I actually got a 0 on that because I was unwilling to take it forward. I was so terrified of speaking. I
Sure.
mean, we know this is one of people's fears, right? But it comes easy to me now, but it's just because it's not even me. It's just love coming through, right? It has nothing to do with me
Hmm.
personally, but um it's process. I mean, I've been working on this stuff for 30 years, right? That personal development journey and then the spiritual journey. I mean, yeah. So it's not like we're just sitting here, yay, love and light and everything's easy. It's not. You got to go through your own fires over and
Yeah.
over and over again. You have to lean into your own shadow work and discover what's been at play and running in the background and underneath to really heal and be able to connect authentically. And I just love your work. I'm so grateful.
Ah.
That you're in the
Oh,
world and that
likewise.
we are friends. And let me just check on the timing here. Oh my gosh, we've
Sure.
been almost an hour. Beautiful. I
Okay.
want to ask you about one more thing. Oh, but before I do,
Sure.
did you have anything to say before I change the
No,
subject?
no, no, no. Go ahead. I think we wrapped that. Yeah.
um, the one thing I wanted to actually ask you about before we finish is I know that you have been diving into, I feel like I'm using that phrase a lot today, exploring your creativity. I've seen you working on art, and that seems to be coming into the conversation a lot lately, is letting those creative
Mhm.
impulses be part of your life. Um,
Yeah, I'm so glad.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Sorry, I
I didn't
cut
even
you
have
off
a
there.
question. I think you got it without me even
Oh.
saying anything.
I'm just so glad that you brought that up, because that has been, a personal breakthrough for me recently. Is how we get into these to-do lists, especially if
Mm,
you're an entrepreneur. There's your set number of, prospecting, or marketing, or all,
yep.
all of these things that we do. As I won't go into the details of it. And then you can look at your list, and some things you check off. Sometimes you have days where you check off every single thing on that list, and you're like, I feel fantastic. And then there's some items on that list where you begin to think like, oh, I'm just not doing it. And every time we don't do it, it kind of chips away at our confidence.
Mm,
And so what I've been learning recently is, instead of focusing on that task list, like, we begin to, when those tasks just aren't getting done, we begin to have like a really negative association with them, because suddenly now they're having us feel bad about ourselves. So
yeah.
you're not going to
There's
want
some
to do
blame
something
and shame and
that you
yeah.
feel bad about yourself, and then you keep avoiding it, and it just keeps perpetuating that same cycle over and over again. But what if you zoomed out completely, and you started looking at, well, what lights me up, what would have me feel more confident that's completely unrelated to the task at hand. So instead of being focused on the task, you
Take it
start looking at,
sideways.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what's the skill set that I need to develop here? And for if it's like you're an entrepreneur and it's prospecting and you're not doing it because you don't have the confidence to reach out to people, then what could you do that builds that confidence? And recently I took on a Toastmaster. I went to my first Toastmaster meeting and I loved it because I got to improve my public speaking. I got to be around people that felt really good. And sure enough, the next day, I was like reaching out to people. It felt so
Yeah.
easy, and it was because for a second there, instead of making it about that task, it was like, well, what's the skill set underneath it? What's a creative expression? So I'll, before I get on the phone with a client, I will play piano for 10 minutes because it
Beautiful.
gets me grounded.
Yeah.
So for anybody that's listening that might be stuck, or there's just things on that list that you might not be checking off, I want you to look at, like, what's the skill set underneath it? Is it confidence? Is it communication? Is it either something emotional or something mental that could be improved? And what could you do that's completely outside of that you love? These are the requirements. One, you must
Yes.
you must be
It
interested in it.
yes.
it must
Yeah, it's not
it must
another
make you.
task, another burden.
No,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, and like, what can you do that will then create that ripple effect? The example that was taught to me was like, you're riding a bike. Okay, let's say you're having trouble riding a bike, you can't get on that bike, you don't get it. So instead of just being focused on, oh, I can't ride this bike, well, what does biking include? It's hand-eye coordination and balance. So what if for the next little bit, I'm just going to focus on balance? I'm going to stand on
Yeah.
one leg, I'm going to stand on another leg, then I'm going to stand on
Beautiful.
a tightrope. And these are fun, small ways that take the pressure off. If you have balance figured out, you're going to feel better on a bicycle, even though it feels completely unrelated. So, you look at these things, you're like, well, is Toastmasters going to improve my business? Maybe not directly, but it's going to
Yeah.
give you the confidence and the skill set required to do the things that you want to do. So,
It's transfer of
thank you for
skills,
mentioning that.
right? Yeah, it's transfer of
Yeah.
skills. And yeah, I always do that with people too, with clients or people that I'm talking to where they're saying one thing. I'm like, yeah, but think of a whole other situation in your life where you actually felt amazing and confident, and transfer that skill over to how you're feeling less than now in this situation. And you just brought a really brilliant, of course, solid example of that into this conversation. And even with the creativity or going out in nature, when we feel better and we're letting ourselves express, it spills out into everything else. It
Yeah.
isn't linear and it isn't direct. It's just like osmosis almost.
Yeah, and it gives yourself permission to do something that you love and you
Yeah.
enjoy. Not that we need it. You don't have to have permission, but I feel like there are a lot of times when, you don't want to do those things because you tell yourself they're not productive.
Yeah,
But
they're
what
not
if they
important.
were
What is
productive?
painting, right? What is
Yeah.
dancing? What is singing? What is going, like, I don't have time. I've got this to-do list, like you said. But what if you going out into the forest for a few minutes and
Yeah.
or singing or something would just bring so much joy into your body and your mind and your soul and your heart that you came back to those calls or that whatever that task is, and you just went right through it like water because
Yeah.
you feel amazing. And that's confidence. It was just
Yeah.
happiness or joy, or the fact that you honored your own little voice of something that makes you happy.
Yeah. It's a
So
gift that we
interesting.
get to give ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and a happy Sue's on a call to a client is way better than like, oh my God, I have to do this and it's on my list. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, if
exactly.
you came to this with that energy, neither of us would have had any fun.
I
I'm
agree.
tired. I'm sure you can see, but it doesn't matter because this is really special, and this is something that I love.
Yeah, me
Like
too. Me
having a
too.
conversation with a beautiful human being, and you are the definition of leading with love. You're a leader. You're a leader in your community. You're a leader in your family. You're Yeah, I honor you for the embodiment that you have. You're living what you say you are. you know, integrity and alignment. It shows, it radiates, it's just your truth. And I really love
Mm.
that.
Well, thank you for seeing me, Shauna.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I think we are, yeah, we're just, I try to keep it about an hour so it's reasonable for people to listen to. I'm sure we could
Sure.
talk all day, but um, I want to know also, I mean, of course, importantly, where people can find you, any last words, what you might want to share in terms of drawing people to you and your work.
Yeah, I mean, we have a group on Facebook that's called the Peak Performance Tribe. Our website is peak-performancecoaching.ca, and I'll send you my information, Shauna, so that other people can reach me if
Perfect.
they
Oh
would like to
yeah, I'll
have
put it.
more. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes so that you guys can find Suzanne. Susanna. Why did I call you Suzanne? Oh my
that's
goodness,
okay.
Susanna and Courtney as well. And
Hmm.
I will share too that the Facebook group is powerful. If anybody in here wants to join into that Facebook group, it's not like it's just friends or just associates. If you're mentioning it here, um, I'm assuming it's an open invitation for anyone who feels resonant with that. And you guys are
Yeah.
always running challenges and connecting with you. You know, there are Facebook groups that just kind of get left and do nothing. You guys are actively sharing and putting videos in there and engaging with your people and not just supporting them, but calling them forth and
Mm,
reminding them who they are. And you guys
mm.
are a dynamic duo. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that you've created there. Just that alone, the Facebook group is worth it's gold.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So just wanted to invite anybody listening and watching to go on in there because, if you've got dreams and we all do, that's going to open up something for you. I just know that to be true. So thank you
Mm.
again.
Thanks so much for having me.
Truly my pleasure. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the credits here just for a second, and then I'll be right with you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Awesome. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoyed this episode and it helped you open your heart, feel inspired, and know that we are all connected. Please subscribe and share so this work can touch more people. This is how we co create the world we want to live in. Thank you so much again for joining us, and talk to you next time.